Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this session dedicated to the transition to circular economy, hosted by Cleantech Bulgaria. The perspective that we are going to present you today is coming from Bulgaria and its recent successful experience in designing this process of transition. My name is Mariyana Alexandrova. I am project manager at Cleantech Bulgaria, and it is my pleasure to present you our great panelists today. Here with us is Mrs. Mariyana Hamanova. She is the Executive Director of Cleantech Bulgaria. Hello, Mariyana, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. It's a great pleasure to take part in this very interesting conference.
Thank you, Mariyana. We're looking forward to speaking to you. And also we will be joined by Mr. Jeliaz Enev, who is head of directorate, sorry for the hard translation, probably head of department of economy policy in the Ministry of Economy of Bulgaria. He will be joining us a bit later to give us a very valuable perspective of the experience of the ministry, and by the way, of a couple of ministries that collaborated on this task in Bulgaria in the recent months. But before I pass the floor to our great panelists, I would like to say some words as a context of this session. It was great pleasure to hear Mr. Friedel in the morning, who couldn't stress more than that the challenges that circular economy actually impose to our systems. What is obvious for all of us is that adopting this circular economy first is crucial for our future. But second, it's a system job. It's a job that requires to transform entire systems altogether. And this is probably something that has never been done before. That is why it's a very relevant topic to talk about and to find solutions for. I would also like to practically stress upon one statement from the morning session, and it is that what makes this task very difficult, it is not the myriad of definitions of circular economy that exist and that perplex the actors to take certain approach. It is more on the side of our expectations how this transformation should look like. What would be the indicators of success, and what impact from these transformed systems we expect in order to design them and find the right pathway towards this transformation. There are still massive barriers to implementing the circular economy as business as usual. And it requires pulling out entire value chains into this process, the value chain as a system. Getting into full circularity, it is not only disruptive, but probably it is not possible because it will be a long journey. It will be a process on steps and with certain priorities in time. So finding and optimizing the pipeline of circular opportunities requires simultaneously working with new technologies, with investment, with value chains, and also working for the activation of the society and the consumers. And it's obviously a very tough task, and it requires actions on many levels. So I'm very pleased that today in our panel we have experts that will speak from personal experience, from a very recent endeavor done in Bulgaria at the highest administrative and political level. This experience originates from a huge project done in collaboration between the Ministry of Economy as taking the leadership role, Cleantech Bulgaria as the leading business network for sustainable development through innovation in Bulgaria, and many, many stakeholders and actors which were activated and collaborated in a very successful manner in a project and beyond this project, supported also by the EIT Climate-KIC community called Deep Demonstration for Circular Economy in Bulgaria. And now to present us the details from this exciting experience, I would pass the floor to Mariyana Hamanova. Mariyana, do you hear us?
Yes, I hear you very well. Thank you, Maria, for this introduction. It is absolutely one of the most challenging projects and one of the most challenging initiatives that Cleantech Bulgaria has realized in the last couple of years, because it requires a lot of coordination, a lot of policy knowledge, and also a dialogue between the ministries and the public authorities, which is actually one of the main issues when we talk about the system change and system innovation. I will right now share the slides of today's presentation, and I will also, in the moment Mr. Enev will join us, we will accordingly include his short statement and speech within the slides. The overall topic is, as Maria mentioned, the policy aspect, working with the administration, with the public administration in Bulgaria on the circular economy topic. And now just allow me to share my screen with you. Do you see it?
Probably in a minute. Yes, we see it now.
Great. So I will just make now a full screen. Okay. Now you should see also my full screen. So as Maria mentioned, Cleantech Bulgaria is part of the Balkan Beacons, Circular Beacons project. We are one of these 5 countries that in 2020 have been working together towards new business models, towards new ways of waste recycling and usage. And all of these, not only in the context of the technology and innovation, but also in the context of system innovation. Cleantech Bulgaria, it's working in the field of circular economy already 4 or 5 years. So we are among the pioneers in introducing this topic into the Bulgarian market and into the Bulgarian policy dialogue, let's say. We started in 2018 with one event, which was a very high-level conference within the Bulgarian presidency of the European Union, which took part in the first part of 2018. And in this time, we managed to gather more than 200 participants from all over Europe to talk about circular economy in different sectors, in food, in energy, in raw materials, and climate, of course. And it was also the first cross-KIC event, so we managed to gather also all the KICs together in that regard. From there, we started a very active cooperation on the topic circular economy as a strategic level support. And this is also the topic of today's presentation that I have the honor to present to you. It's a joint effort of the whole Cleantech Bulgaria's team, joint effort that took a lot of time, but we are very, very pleased and happy that we managed to get here. And today's presentation will lead you about the practical steps and our experience gathered through the last 2 years in the process of working with the Bulgarian authorities. So the project, actually, it's called Deep Demonstration on Circular and Generative Economy in Bulgaria. And it's, as Maria mentioned, it's led by Cleantech Bulgaria in the country as the organizer of this dialogue. It is funded by EIT Climate-KIC, and it is implemented with the support of the Transitions Hub of EIT Climate-KIC. The colleagues and experts from this hub are our long-term partners, led by Mr. Christian Matti, who is one of the main, let's say, experts behind the system innovation approach and tools and methodologies that support this transition. And also with VITO, which is an international organization based in Brussels and in Netherlands, working very intensively on circular economy topic, consulting governments, working on analysis and strategic documents in the field of circular economy. In Bulgaria, our main so-called challenge owner, or the institution that is very actively engaged in this process, is the Ministry of Economy. But you will see that this is a joint effort, so it's not only that ministry. We managed to engage more than 6 Bulgarian ministries and a couple of national agencies and regional agencies. I will start with a very short question, asking why circular economy, how we got there, why not climate change only, or some kind of innovation transition. And the answer of the question is quite simple. It is related not only to the EU Green Deal requirements and new strategies that were published in the last year, but also to a concept that circular economy is very horizontal issue in a lot of sectors and industries. And it helps and supports the climate change adaptation and mitigation measures. It also helps and supports the innovation adaptation on the SME level. And it's also a driver for scientific and technology innovation. So having in mind all of these, I would like to share with you a short video that is explaining a little bit more about the concept of circular economy, how we understand it, and how we will use it in the next hour and a half during our intervention. Just a second for me to be able to share the video with you. So I probably should make a new share of my screen in order for you to see that. Okay.
Yes.
You see it right away. Okay. Now I will just play.
Plastics are versatile materials, but the way we use them is incredibly wasteful. 95% of the material value is lost after one single use. Our linear packaging system is broken. The take-make-waste system we operate in results in millions of tons of packaging ending up in landfills, incinerators, or worse, the environment. If we continue like this, by 2040, the volume of plastic in the market will double, and the flow of plastic into the ocean will have almost tripled. Ocean plastic stocks quadrupled, reaching over 600 million tons. More cleanups and better recycling won't solve plastic waste in the ocean. We must shift our focus to innovations and business models that design out waste, keep materials in use, and protect and restore our environment. We need a circular economy for plastic, in which it never becomes waste or pollution. The circular economy is an economic system in which materials are designed to be used, not used. The vision for a circular economy for plastic packaging has 6 key points.
The most direct way to avoid plastic packaging waste is to reject the plastic packaging we don't need. If plastic usage increases as currently projected, it will be impossible to keep it all in circulation. Scaling collection and recycling for everyone on this planet is limited by the realistic speed of infrastructure development, it would require connecting nearly 500,000 people to full composite systems every single day between now and 2040. So, while improving recycling is crucial, we cannot simply recycle our way out of plastic pollution. Where we can, without unintended consequences, we should eliminate packaging in the first place, and this can be done through a lot of existing plastic packaging while maintaining utility. Elimination should go far beyond simply removing single-use carrier bags or straws. It is a broad innovation opportunity by rethinking our packaging. The system. Many products can be delivered to consumers without generating packaging waste in the first place, while still delivering outstanding user experiences and products.
Where we do use packaging, reusable packaging should be explored as a way of designing out waste from the outset. Reusable packaging is designed to be used many times with the same purpose, and importantly, as part of a dedicated system for reuse. Unlike recycling, reuse models not only keep the material in the economy, but the entire packaging and its embedded energy and value. So moving from single-use to reuse models helps eliminate plastic waste and pollution, while it can reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Innovative reuse models also have the potential to unlock significant business benefits. Reusable packaging can, 1, be designed to offer customers increased quality and functionality, as the initial production cost is divided over many uses. 2, reduces costs of production and logistics through standardizing packaging formats, and packaging and transportation by supplying compact refills for reusable containers. 3, drive sales by increasing brand loyalty through positive reward schemes and allowing customers to personalize products with packaging.
The reuse, recycling, or composting of packaging shouldn't just be technically possible or possible in theory, it needs to work in practice and at scale. That means reusable, recyclable, and compostable packaging must all be designed to fit within a real-world system. Packaging design isn't just about choice of format and materials, but all features that affect its ability to be collected, sorted, reused, recycled, or composted by existing infrastructure. Designing all packaging to be reusable, recyclable, or compostable requires a combination of redesign and innovation in business models, materials, packaging design, and reprocessing technologies.
No plastics should end up in the environment. Landfill, incineration, and waste to energy are linear and often polluting practices, where the material is lost after only one use. They are not part of the circular economy for plastic. We need to make sure that all used plastic is collected, then reused, recycled, and composted in practice. This requires much more and better infrastructure all around the world. Governments are essential to create policies that enable the establishment of this infrastructure and related self-sustaining funding mechanisms. Also, businesses have a responsibility beyond discarding circular packaging that includes contributing to its collection and its reuse, recycling, or composting. In a circular economy for plastic, all plastic packaging is circulated through being reused, recycled, or composted in practice, staying in the economy and out of the environment.
First and foremost, the need for virgin plastics must be drastically reduced by eliminating the plastics we don't need and maximizing the use of recycled plastics when we do use them. Secondly, over time, any remaining virgin plastic used should not be made from finite fossil resources, but from renewable resources, ensuring they are responsibly managed and environmentally beneficial. On top of this, to fully decouple the whole plastic system from finite resources, the entire system, production, transport, cleaning and recycling should be powered solely by renewable energy.
Plastic contains many chemicals besides the plastic polymers. Some are added on purpose, for example, to improve flexibility or durability, while others are unintentionally formed during the manufacturing process. Among these, we know some chemicals raise concerns because of potential negative effects on human health and the environment. We urgently need research and greater transparency on the chemicals used in plastic and their effects. In a circular economy, all plastic packaging is free of hazardous chemicals, and it's essential to respect the health, safety, and rights of all people involved in all parts of the plastics system, especially those in the informal waste paper sectors.
The Ellen MacArthur Foundation's New Plastics Economy initiative is catalyzing change towards this vision for a circular economy for plastic. Through its global commitment and the Plastic Pact Network, over 1,000 organizations have united behind this vision and actionable 2025 targets to realize it. Join us on our journey to make plastic waste and pollution a thing of the past. The question is not whether a world without plastic pollution is possible, but what we will do together to make it happen.
So, I will stop now the video. Just a second. And I'm back with you. This was one very short video talking mainly about the plastics within the concept of circular economy. But the concept actually is applicable in a lot of other sectors. We believe that, of course, one of the main issues that the current society and economy has is related to plastics and how we deal with it. But this is applicable also to electronic waste. This is applicable also to all consumer goods. Actually, the concept of circular economy is to optimize the waste flows, but in the same time, develop new business models where the products will be in a way substituted by services or mixed models, in order to make the economy more sustainable. And I see here that Mr. Jeliaz Enev from the Ministry of Economy has just joined. Hello, Mr. Enev.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Enev. Welcome.
Nice to see you. I will continue now with a few more slides, and then I will give the floor to Mr. Enev, just in order to give him the opportunity to feel a little bit more comfortable in our panel, because we already started. And I will get back to the presentation. Just a second to share my screen again. So here it is. I hope you see it.
Yep, it works.
Great. After we answer the question, why circular economy, we will go to the system innovation approach. And actually, what makes this project and this initiative unique is the combination of different stakeholders and actors who are able to bring all these processes together and are trying to make it more sustainable and working as a system. As mentioned, Cleantech Bulgaria is the lead partner in this project, and our main partner in Bulgaria is the Ministry of Economy. EIT Climate-KIC is our partner, and it has taken the role of an orchestrator, so bringing all this European knowledge and networks together. So how we understand the system innovation network? As mentioned already previous, we don't see the circular economy transition only as a technology revolution. We don't see it also only as a behavioral change, which is crucial in order to be able to implement it. But we try to connect the dots and put also the education and skills in the focus, because at the end it is about how we apply what we know actually, and is it enough, our knowledge, in order to implement all of these complex concepts. And not on the last place is the funding. The funding, in this case, I hope everyone will agree with me that the funding is available, the funding is there, but how we bring it and in what we put our money in is the concept that we're gonna tackle today. That's why we need the policy dialogue, that's why we need the regulations and the framework that the current project is right now supporting us to do and to experiment. What was the methodology that we used? So first we start with an intent of commitment. This happened in 2018 when we started our first cooperation with the Ministry of Economy, and it was the so-called intent phase. This means that we have formulated jointly some common challenges which are valuable for Bulgaria, and we defined some how to say, some pressing points where we would like to join our efforts in the future. Then we went to the definition of a concrete strategy or a roadmap that we would like to implement. And this is the so-called frame phase. This happened this year, the frame phase. And now we are moving, hopefully in the next year, in the portfolio phase, which is the so-called action plan that should get into implementation. So whatever we planned in the frame phase, we will try to integrate it in the next step and make it accessible for the local stakeholders. This means businesses, this means innovative communities, clusters, startups, etc. And the last and most, let's say, our final goal is to go to the intelligence phase, where we'll be able really to showcase concrete examples and already working models. What is the most interesting aspect in our cooperation is that we managed to get together different strategic documents, to analyze them, to see where there are synergetic possibilities and how we can better transform the strategy into a working action plan and model. Here, as mentioned, the work has started not yesterday, it started 2 years ago. And the conversation was about the smart specialization strategy of Bulgaria. The conversation was about different areas of cooperation between the authorities, between the ministries, because, you know, it's impossible to talk about circular economy only from the aspect of the environment or only from the aspect of the business or the citizens. And here, I will give the floor to Mr. Enev, because actually the strategic portfolio that the Ministry of Economy is managing and further developing is a crucial part of this process. And he will tell us a little bit more about the national strategy for the small and medium enterprises that we took into consideration, the smart specialization strategy of the country that now will be updated for the next funding period, and also the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Hamanova. Maybe I have to tell a few words about our ministry and our directorate. I'm a director of Economic Policy Directorate at the Ministry of Economy of Bulgaria. Our team is responsible for developing policies to support small and medium-sized enterprise and innovations. In this regard, we are responsible for the development of and implementation of the National Strategy for SME and Innovation Strategy for Smart Specialization. I have to say a few words about our cooperation with Cleantech. It dates back to about 2 years and came at a time when we started preparing future strategic documents for the next program period. Then we assessed the challenges facing our economy and trends in European policy. The increasing requirements for the competitiveness of Bulgarian enterprises, the energy and resource efficiency, the need to address climate changes, etc. The need to introduce technologies of the circular economy, reduce waste generation, stimulate energy and resource efficiency and eco-innovations was outlined. The transition to circular economy is a huge opportunity to transform the economy and increase sustainability, conserve local resources, create jobs, and develop competitive advantages. The circular economy will reduce environmental pollution, problems with the supply of raw materials, and give consumers access to more sustainable products. According to statistics, Bulgaria's economy is most resource intensive within the EU, which requires emphasis on developing measures to increase the rate of circular secondary use of materials, introduction of low carbon, resource efficient and waste-free technologies, not least the introduction of eco-innovation, including new environmental products and technologies. Faced with these challenges, we formed the interdepartmental working group under the Ministry of Economy, in which we invited experts from Ministry of Regional Development and Public Works, Ministry of Agriculture, Foods and Forestry, Ministry of Environment and Water, Ministry of Education and Science. Due to our good cooperation in previous initiatives, we include Cleantech Bulgaria, a partner of Climate-KIC, and launched an inclusive and joint process for developing synergies between the national strategic documents for transition to circular economy. Within the working group, we considered possible initiatives for companies that want to introduce new technologies and innovations for waste-free production process of those with reduced waste production. We also discussed various tools to support companies to implement the principles of sustainability and the circular economy, including green business management, market development options for the purchase of secondary raw materials, etc. We learned about good European practices and received expert support from representatives of Climate-KIC and Cleantech Bulgaria. As a result of our work, new leading priorities have been introduced in the drafts of our strategic documents, especially the draft National Strategy for SMEs has developed a priority area environment, which outlines measures to promote the circular economy, support for the introduction of technologies for reuse and raw materials, eco-certifications, industrial symbiose, waste reduction, increasing energy efficiency, and etc. The circular industry has been identified as priority at the national level. Essential addition was made to draft of the national document that we are developing, the Innovation Strategy for Smart Specialization. In the updated innovation strategy for the period 2022-27, we envisage the introduction of a new fifth vertical priority area, clean technologies, low carbon and circular economy. The aim is to stimulate the development and introduction of innovations affecting the entire material life cycle, from extraction of raw materials through design, production, use, recycling, and reuse of raw materials. Excuse me. I don't present the future strategies as they are subject to approval by the Bulgarian government, but given the advanced stage of their preparation, as well as the operational programs, changes in leading priorities are not expected. I will end with the fact that the Ministry of Environment and Water is currently developing a national strategy for circular economy. We are in contact with colleagues, exchange views, and give opinions on the draft document. As a result of our cooperation with Cleantech Bulgaria and Climate-KIC, we feel much better prepared and have good practices and solutions to apply in Bulgarian conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Enev. It was really very nicely presented, the brief conclusion of all the amount of work that we have jointly developed and in a way brought forward in the last couple of years. I believe for everyone is visible that this cooperation is only possible when there is a common vision about where we want to get, and as a society, as economy, as a country. And we express our highest gratitude to the Ministry of Economy for the support and for the enthusiasm to work together with us on this, because we see it as a very important step for the next 7 years, where we have very big, the European Union has set very big ambitions for all the topics related to the European Green Deal and the priorities which are very much following the circular economy as a main principle for future development. I will show here a few pictures from some of the working groups that we have been jointly organizing. This was in 2019, still when we were able to meet together and to co-create together. This was an approach and methodology that we used in all our cooperations so far, supported by the Transitions Hub of Climate-KIC. And here I have listed just several experts from the ministry. The number of the people involved is much higher, but these were one of the main contributors to this joint work. And we managed to gather data and important information about priorities and strategies that were crucial for our future work. And because we have a 2 hours conversation, I don't know if there are questions, but if there are such, I prefer that Maria, if you see such questions and if they're related to some of the presentation topics that we are currently covering, you can feel free to interrupt us, to ask the question, then to continue with the presentation, because this format online doesn't allow a real interaction with the audience, which is one of our main strengths, because we think that the dialogue is very important here. So please, everyone, if you have questions, post them into the chat of the streaming software that you're currently reviewing the conference, and Maria will be responsible to transfer these questions to us.
Sure.
Just also a short remark, Mr. Enev will not stay with us till the end. So in the next couple of minutes, let's say another 15 minutes, he will be here. So if you want to pose a question to him, then please feel free to do so. Otherwise, of course, our team is here and we can answer the questions afterwards. So I will continue with the approach used. So this system mapping exercise was divided in different points and in different actions. So what we used was a process of identifying key actors, key actions, and then connect them to specific sectors. As you see, in order to receive this system innovation approach, we started with actions which are more, let's say, new, or we try to group them in new on our existing actions. And then we attach to each and every action concrete actors and sectors. In this way, we managed to identify several clusters, activity clusters, who afterwards were mapped as elements. And as you see here, this is very shortly presented information from these working groups, because we managed to identify new actions. So there are 41 existing, but 30 new actions. And in these actions, we identified and attached different actors and activities. What Mr. Enev mentioned about this vertical and horizontal prioritization of the circular economy was a long discussion. Right now, we managed to get to some kind of a conclusion that it's important to be vertical and horizontal, because we see that you cannot, so the circular economy is cross-sectoral issue. So that's why the vertical component is very important. But in order to be able for the operational programs to allocate funding for concrete actions, the ministry and the working group has decided and pushed very much to prioritize the circular economy as vertical action as well. And that's why this is one of the smart specializations priority thematic areas, namely circular economy and clean technologies. Additionally, what we did here on the right side, you can see different actions related to how we understand circular economy, because there are different interpretations. So is it only clean tech or mechatronics? It's also in the same time waste management and waste minimalization actions. Knowledge management is also something that it's very important, because the knowledge is existing, but how we manage to put it in practice. Is it about education, capacity building, where this is mostly needed? So all of these topics were part of our discussions, and we tried to group them in different, let's say, actions and sub-actions. As you see here, we identified to each activity different type of, we define them as existing or new, and attach to them responsible actors. So if there are ministries or centers of excellence, centers of competence, different stakeholders like universities or private businesses. It's a huge topic. So here you can just see the approach that we used, but it's a work, huge amount of work that has been done in the process in order to be able to identify all of these interactions, because this was the key point in which we had to identify roles to the ministries and to the local authorities, and at the same time connect it with the expectations of the business and the innovation community. What we managed to get are different recommendations, and we divided them in several policy-driven categories, which allowed us to structure our work better. And as you see, the highest number of inputs were exactly in the field of clean technologies, in the waste hierarchy and waste management, and as well as in reuse of materials. Here are also, and the knowledge management, of course, is something related to skills and education. Then we group them with several instruments related to how the actions and activities relate to the different actions that we have identified. And we produce several maps in which we were able better to visualize the outcomes of our discussions. At the end, so it's not the end, it was the end of the step that we were about to complete. We created a list with recommendations, challenges, and potential opportunities. So from all these 27,
Mariyana?
yes?
Mariyana, I'm interrupting with a question that I just received.
Sure.
It is directed to both of you with Mr. Enev. One of our participants says, a very interesting process. What was the most challenging part in the process of designing your strategy? Taking into consideration probably all these interactions and different topics that you had to analyze.
The biggest challenge was to bring all that knowledge together. I believe that it was the moment in which we realized that each of us as an expert and as a representative of an institution is having his own mindset about what is important. And the biggest challenge was to bring everything on the table. There was no wrong or right answer. It was everything is valuable, everything is important. And that's why it took a lot of time. And actually the support of the Transitions Hub of Climate-KIC in this process was very important, because we managed to visualize, to present maps of what we have discovered and to count the inputs. For example, how, of course, circular economy contains recycling, but how important is recycling in the Bulgarian ecosystem? Or how important is the innovation support on behalf of the universities, for example, for the Bulgarian ecosystem? And I think that this was the most challenging thing, to bring all the knowledge together and to put it on several slides and say, look, we are really needing these 4 priorities to be tackled in the next couple of years. I don't know if Mr. Enev has also something to add, but I believe that this was the biggest challenge.
Mr. Enev, what is your take on this topic, this question?
I will add that our biggest challenge was to involve all institutions which are which have competence in the process. It was a challenge to make them to understand the importance of topic of circular economy. And to give their point of view and resource and include resource to our goal, to our strategy.
Definitely, yes. It was also.
Thank you. And one more comment coming here. It says, stepping on this experience, this is system thinking in real life. Can you share whether this approach, this type of analysis could be applied in other areas for other challenges that you face in your work?
This is a question to
I
me,
believe
or
it's for both of you also, yeah.
Okay, I will allow myself to start, and then Mr. Enev, if he has something to add, it will be great. I think that this is applicable in each and every working or life situation. So it is about how to bring on the table all the possible opportunities and how to assess them. So if you have a complex challenge to solve, like the one for circular economy, definitely you should not look it only from your own perspective, like a business institution or a governmental institution or university. You should take all of these, put it together, and then group it and see how many inputs are related to each and every category, and see if there are 1 or 2 or if there are 20. And when you say that there is the 20, the number 20, then this means this is important. This is the only way how you can, in a way, manage the process and see what is the highest priority in one process. And I believe this is applicable in each and every complex situation where different actors and actions are involved and applied.
Thank you. Very interesting take on the process itself. Mr. Enev, what is your perspective on this question? Can we apply system thinking in other areas of your work?
Excuse me, but I have a new task simultaneously with this topic. I think that Ms. Hamanova say all, and at the moment I can't add.
Yeah, I see. Maybe you.
Sorry.
Yeah, you have to leave soon. I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to thank you, Mr. Enev, for your participation. We understand that now there are a lot of pressing issues to be solved on ministry level. It's the moment in which Bulgaria and all member states are preparing different type of strategic documents to be sent to the Commission. So please continue working, because we need this. We need this as a country. We need this as a community. We will continue with the presentation, and thank you once again for your participation.
Thank you, Mr. Enev.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Yes, we have a lot of work under the operative program and Recovery and Resilience Fund and Rescue EU Fund, etc. And
actually, you just give us give us few examples where system thinking could be applied, and all these changes happening simultaneously. So
yes.
this was a very how to say dynamic closure of your speech. So thank you very much once again.
I wish
good
you
luck.
Your initiative.
Thank you very much. Good luck to you too.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Well, I'll make sure to collect all questions and comments that you want to address to Mr. Enev, and we'll transmit to him after the session, and we'll keep in touch, of course, for this interesting process. Mariyana, I give you back the floor for us to get the flavor of the result of this complex assessment that you did.
Thank you, Maria. So I will continue here with the slide about the recommendations, because it was actually, this was the end of last year, 2019, and these recommendations were actually very positively assessed and took into the practice from the ministry. Because they were very concrete, and they were something that actually the ministry needs in order to address better their policy work. The recommendations are a lot. They were mainly related to the horizontal and vertical prioritization, as mentioned, but also to different actions that the SMEs could implement in order to achieve this new transition to circularity and to the new business models. Actually, what is very important right now, that this project came exactly in the moment where the new operational programs and strategies for the next 7 years are planned. You know that we will have from next year a new a funding scheme, and the operational programs for 2021-2027 will run according to the strategies that are just coordinated and approved right now, or in a process of approval. So that's why this was absolutely necessary step in order to ensure that the strategic support and the strategic level will then be transformed in concrete actions and plans for implementation. So what actions were basically recommended? Here I just put very few of them, but just to let you understand what we decided at the end of 2019. And this was that first of all, we need targeted actions, and this means also identification of different programs in order to be able to cover these actions, because you cannot cover all the actions only within the operational program innovation and competitiveness, which is mainly designed for the SMEs and for innovation. So we identified the directions needed on behalf of the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Regional Development, because we need also infrastructure. It's clear, we cannot just apply models and new business models from out of nowhere. That's why we divided them in several blocks. And also we decided that we cannot do this only with the ministry. So we need also the future beneficiaries. And this means that we should do focus groups with the beneficiaries that I will explain you now how they went, because we decided that we will target 3 main focus groups: the recycling companies in all type of waste streams, so packaging, electronic waste, also industrial waste, everything related to recycling. We decided that the innovation clusters are playing also a key role into the process, talking about industrial symbiosis, talking about different other cooperation activities that are necessary in order to implement circularity. And we put also a focus on the startups, because jointly with the experts from the ministries, we saw that the startups are the transformative agents that can bring the innovation very fast into the market. What we also mentioned, and it was stated as a main requirement, is that whatever we discuss and whatever nice suggestions we have, we should connect them to indicators, because this is how it works. So you should have your list with actions, but these actions should lead to concrete indicators and results. So how to measure the impact, or how to measure the success of one action related to better startup support or better recycling infrastructure. And this is still the biggest challenge, I believe, not only in Bulgaria, but in all EU member states, because there are, on behalf of the European Commission, already delivered some kind of a tools and methodologies, like the circular economy monitoring framework of the European Commission. But still the list of actions and the list of indicators is not, how to say, not full enough with particular cases which are applicable in each and every country. It's too general, and now all the experts also on behalf of the European Environmental Agency are working towards to enlarge and make more detailed list of indicators in order to support the governments to better structure their instruments for measuring the impact. So these were the main, how to say, recommendations with which we started in 2020 the work towards getting to the frame phase, like I explained in the beginning. So this is what we have to take into consideration, because now the focus groups, they just finished last week. It was a long process of particular beneficiaries and final users of the funds or of the actions planned. What we did here, we again used the system innovation approach in order to gather their challenges, needs, possibilities, and opportunities. It was in a virtual environment, unfortunately not physical. This, of course, complicated a little bit the communication, but I should say that the people were very motivated to take part in this process. And we managed to do several important things with them. So we first outlined different, let's say, 3 steps. The methodology consists in first step to map the roles. So if we go, for example, I will give you an example with the clusters. So when we started the working group with the clusters, the focus group, we told them that first we should define what are the roles of each and every cluster in the ecosystem. And depending if it's a cluster for urban mobility or a cluster for artificial intelligence or a cluster dealing with biotechnologies, then they define their role in the ecosystem, which was very, very logical step because their role is similar, just applied in a different sector. Then we identified main stakeholders with whom they interact. Usually, these are governments, these are funding authorities, these are users, these are international partners. And then we, in a way, made possible to exchange what are the transactions between them. Here I gave an example. You see in the middle are the recycling companies, for example. And these recycling companies are interacting daily with all of the stakeholders described. And we tried to, in a way, put a name of these transactions, because the transactions can be material transactions like products, services, contracts, taxes, but there can be also intangible flows like knowledge, trust, like information. And all of these interactions are very important in order to identify what and how you could support in the process of a transition. Because to certain stakeholders, the material transaction is very important, like the example, recycling companies with the financial sector. So there you have contracts, you have loans, you have access to finance, you have procedures in order to receive funding, in order to further develop your activity. But there are other type of transactions which are related to intangible flows. And these are usually the transactions with the government, because there you should create some kind of a, you know, knowledge agreements, cooperations, in order to be better prepared for the real implementation of your actions. And as a next step, we identified to each and every transaction what were the weaknesses and problems existing right now in this transaction, and what are the opportunities then, because where there is a weakness, there is always an opportunity, how to make it better, how to make it work better. Now we are in a process of codification of all the knowledge gathered. As mentioned, we use the platform Miro for this. So now we are codifying all the inputs, all these stickers that you see in different colors, and we will produce maps that will visualize all the inputs in the different categories and between the different stakeholders. Still, we don't have that, as mentioned. Just last week was the last focus group with the startups, but we expect great results, because we saw that the audience was very, very attracted by the way this exercise was made. It was a completely new model how you do focus groups, because you know, when you go to an agency which is delivering this as a service, like you usually do like a social research or policy research focus group, you have there a questionnaire, the people answer it, and then they analyze the results of the answers. And here we completely disrupted this way of you know, filling in questionnaires, and said, look, now we should really work together, and we should sit together and discuss, because again, there is no wrong or right answer. There is no wrong or right interaction. If there is a need of this interaction, then it's right. It's absolutely needed. And this was really very exciting work, a very exciting opportunity to cooperate with everyone in the process. Are there any questions on this stage?
Actually, yes, I was waiting for the proper moment to interrupt you. There is one question coming in. It says, how did you manage to successfully translate this world-based practice in such a way to make it possible for the local context?
It was not an easy task. I mean, it requires a lot of preparational work. So if it's a physical event, of course, it's easier because you can explain to the people very easily what they have to do. The virtual reality, unfortunately, does not provide this direct personal contact, but nevertheless, we made a lot of manuals, talked to the people up front, prepared our team as well, equipped with new knowledge and with new methodologies to do that. And it's a process. I don't think that it can happen for 1 or 2 months. It's something that will continue also in the future. But definitely the COVID situation forced us to be more creative, to be more adaptive to the new requirements. And I believe we did a great job in this. The best practices actually are part of the next slides that I will present, because they're not only best practices in how to adapt methodologies and tools for system innovation, but how to adapt best practices from other countries and adapt them into the national environment. And directly going to the best practices, here we cooperated very strongly with Vito. As I mentioned, they are part of the project as well, because of their international expertise, because of their focus on strategic level support in different countries. And we supplied them with information on the Bulgarian operational program for innovation and competitiveness, at least the drafts that we had on that time, because it's still not, of course, finalized. And we gave them some directions to think about and to collect best practices that might be applicable for Bulgaria from other countries. Focusing on Industry 4.0, focusing on SMEs, but also how to support larger companies, how to create industrial symbiosis. All of these topics are quite new for Bulgaria, but of course for all Europe as well. But there are countries who are leading in 1 or 2 of these directions. So we prepared, together with Vito, a very detailed document on these best practices. And we tried to attach them also to some indicators, because it's always nice to have best practice, but it's much better when you know in one or the other country, having it as a case, how they measure the impact. And the Vito colleagues have identified several type of indicators, because you cannot measure everything with a single type of indicators. And they said that what is important here for different actions, for example, for financial or human resource type of actions, it's better to have input indicators, for example, R&D spending or number of researchers involved in different activities. So we have also activity indicators, which are applicable for a number of companies, for example, which are declaring circular economy activities. In some countries already there are some kind of a, in Bulgaria still not, some kind of circular economy self-declarations that are submitted by the companies voluntarily together with financial reports. And this is an interesting example. There are also output indicators, which are the one that usually everyone implements, like number of patents, number of publications, media coverage of certain campaigns. So this was already existing. And also output indicators, which were related more to the social economic impacts, like exports or employment, demographic aspects. And I know that it sounds very general, but when you see the practices, then you're able to identify whether some of the indicators should be made more detailed, or it's enough to have like the overall one. And this was very important for the ministry, because they have to put this right away, right now into their documents, next to the actions proposed, next to the programs planned. This is a work that they're still undergoing right now, because there is no rule, there is no one principle that is fitting for everything. And it's really hard to measure shared economy. It's really hard to measure eco-design, because even the definitions of these topics are so broad that you should translate it in your own context. You should understand well what you mean under shared economy and how you plan to increase or decrease certain actions within that system. So all of these examples are examples of fields where system innovation is required. Coming back to the previous question in the beginning, all of these actions cannot happen only with one stakeholder deciding. It's not possible. Some of the observations took into consideration existing reports. For example, the European Environmental Agency has very detailed yearly or biannually reports that are giving this type of insights. What is interesting in this, talking about industrial symbiosis, for example, because this was one of the main topics that the Ministry of Economy wanted to receive more information about in order to further develop it within the next funding period, was that mostly the majority of the good practices are having a non-mandatory or and voluntarily character. So it's still not clear, and probably is not even efficient, if you put some kind of a fees or some kind of a actions that will in a way punish somebody who is not doing a circular action. So here the positive message should be to incentivize, to influence the behavior, and to provide information in a way that the people will really get enthusiastic and engaged to do that. Also explaining the economic value. So because only with inspiration, it is not enough to really reach this transition. That's why the general observation is that, of course, you can support this with some kind of taxes or incentives, but at the end, there should be a common understanding that this is a non-mandatory activity. These are some of the topics that were covered in the report, and these topics are each by itself is very complex. So I will I try to summarize it because it's not possible to present everything. But some of these topics are very interconnected, because you cannot support Industry 4.0 without innovation support program for SMEs. You cannot go for Green Deals, not in the context of the EU Green Deal, but Green Deals in terms of transactions. If you don't have support for recycling companies, for example. And this is a huge thing. I believe there is no one still on this planet who is able to give a recipe how to connect all of this and make it work as a whole. But at least what we have managed to do is to identify what are the existing good practices, how they are measured, and in case this is applicable for the local ecosystem, to be tested. So this is also the next year's plan that we are trying to organize right now, is to have this portfolio approach and to group the existing knowledge in some kind of a smaller pilots, because without testing it, we will never know if it will work.
Yeah, Mariyana, we have a very intuitive audience today, because actually exactly a question in this direction came in. One of the participants is asking, what according to you is the most priority, is the step of the biggest priority next in this process?
Yeah, it's actually what I just mentioned. It's the biggest priority right now is, after identifying all of these possible best practices and solutions, to choose the one from which to start. And they're different in each and every country, because in some countries you can decide to work directly with the large enterprises. In Bulgaria, for example, the economic sector, the economic activities in the different sectors are having some kind of interdependencies. I don't feel comfortable to talk about the whole Bulgarian economy, because I'm not an expert in this, but I believe that what is the value for the ministry is that right now, knowing the demographical data, the economic and financial data about the composure of the whole economic activity in the country, they will be able to assess and to decide how and which of the activities described would be like the first runners. Because you should start with small steps, but with positive examples. You should implement something which it's highly expected to work. These are, I have several slides also about this coming in the next couple of minutes, because one of the things, so the industrial symbiosis is something that the government is very willing to support in the next couple of years. We found out that in Belgium there is a platform which was created exactly for this purpose, and it might be a good practice that we can adopt and translate into our environment. And it is some kind of a, let's say, marketplace for companies who are having waste as a final, it's not a resource still, it's waste, and other companies who need that waste as a resource. And it was, yeah, so small technical issue.
Sorry for interruption.
Not a problem. So, and it was very interesting to see that this marketplace started working in the moment the people saw the benefit of this transaction of waste. Because really something that you don't need might be a resource for somebody who is searching for it. And this person or company can be very close to you, somewhere in a closer geographical area. And this is already a symbiosis. You know, like I have this type of material or waste, and then you can use it in certain way. Of course, here the legislation is crucial because still the waste legislation is very conservative, and it should be as well, because it should protect the environment. but the waste legislation is the main barrier in certain cases in order to really accomplish a symbiosis. So this was one of the findings. The Industry 4.0 is another example. It's related to manufacturing industry, mainly, and to SMEs. Of course, digitalization of processes, digitalization of production streams, digitalization of products and services is something that we saw it, that it's so required in our everyday life that we should further develop this. And one of the nice examples that we found was related to voucher schemes, for example, in Serbia, that was supported by the government to give to the SMEs vouchers, like innovation vouchers, to spur their further development towards digitalization. There are different instruments. Also in Czech Republic, we found interesting activities, but nothing about the monitoring. So here it's, you know, best and good examples are always good for you to know how different countries are experimenting with these approaches. For Bulgaria, the recommendation might be about the energy efficiency for SMEs, because there are existing programs funded by the European Bank for EBRD, for recovery and I cannot pronounce the whole name. I'm sorry, I got confused. But EBRD is supporting a lot of cities in Bulgaria and also businesses towards energy efficiency, digitalization, and innovation actions. This might be interesting interactions in the future using European, not only grants, but also financial instruments in a way in order to spur this process.
Mariyana,
yes,
our audience is also curious to know about the social layer, about the analysis and outcomes in terms of how to, I guess, interact with society.
Actually, in our project, the interaction with the society was indirect. So we didn't have a citizens engagement initiatives within this project because the project it would have been very difficult to go on citizens level. We believe that if you have national level, which was our main topic, so strategic national level institutions, then the citizens should be represented through the clusters or some kind of NGOs or organizations who are representing this target group. But we didn't interact directly with citizens. We believe that the citizens approach and the citizens involvement approach is much more suitable for municipalities as local stakeholders who are in a way much more engaged and should play this role of addressing the citizens' needs. That's why we limited our work only with organizations representing different stakeholder groups, but not every time with the stakeholders themselves. I don't know if this is clear enough.
It seems so far.
Yeah, you never know if it's clear enough or not. At least if it's a physical event, the person asking the question can add or ask another one. I hope we are managing to cover your questions. Believe me, it's difficult also for us to stay in front of a screen and not see the faces of the people in front of us who are reacting in a certain way. And for me, as a speaker right now, it's also difficult to understand if what is the audience. You know, it's very important when you stay in front of the audience to be able to see it and to see a little bit of the reactions. Right now, this is limited, and I'm following my agenda in a way. I hope it is interesting for you, and of course, it's not so interactive as we would like to if it would have been physical, but we are doing our best.
Yeah, I'm empathic to you. And by the way, I have kept one question for me, but from me to you regarding this complex situation that we operate right now, which is obviously not clear how long will take. Probably this will be the new normal, but still the audience has the advantage. And once we exhaust all the questions, I will address this particularity later.
Great, thank you for
But
that.
Mariana, I think you skipped one very important slide,
Should I come
the
back?
one with the investment. I
Yeah.
believe it's curious for the audience to know how Bulgaria will design this.
Sure. It's a very general framework because right now, you know, the European multi-annual framework, financial framework is still not adopted and confirmed finally. So it's quite difficult to talk to institutions who don't have this approved still. But there are some tendencies, and we know that the Green Deal will heavily focus on sustainable investment. We know that EIB, the European Investment Bank, has announced and has published a lot of articles related, like EIB goes green. So they have an ambition to become the European Green Bank. We know that the sustainable finance as such is a topic that is in the last 10-15 years is very much developing, and most probably there will be different financial instruments designed in the future in the field of sustainable finance. We also know, and it's a very, very important question, is to go to the EU taxonomy regulation. So this is something that will in a way design and list sectors which will be accepted as green or sustainable sectors and will be privileged in the process of funding with lower interest rates or with higher points when it's about approving a project. So this is something which is happening also right now. I think this regulation was already adopted. There were a lot of discussions if, for example, cement industry is green or not, and if to exclude it or to include it. I didn't follow the process so in detail, but we should be very careful here. I mean, we as Europe, because there are sectors which are not green, but are very important for the whole economy in terms of raw material and supply of key products or materials needed. Because a cement is something, I'm just giving an example, that it's heavy. You cannot transport it in larger distances, and it's a very country specific. So if you exclude industries with such type of scope that produce a material which is needed as a basis for a lot of other industries, then we should be careful to not do the opposite. Instead of supporting the circular economy, to destroy the economy by itself. So circular economy can only exist when there is a strong economy, and this is something that I believe is crucial here, because it sometimes we talk a lot about the environment, which is the key focus of all these processes, but we should not forget that the economic logic, that the economic activity is in the focus and in the center of this transition. In a lot of countries, there are created the help desks for SMEs for circular transition. This is also one of the recommendations from this report also to our government, to check whether this type of help desk could not be possible and good solution to be placed in the chambers of commerce, within the innovation centers, or other type of intermediary organizations, because we need to transform the different value chains. We cannot just, you know, bottom up, put some regulations and finish with this.
We have a question in this regard, by the way. It says, do you personally believe that there must be pioneering industries or pioneering value chains in this process, or the measure should be decided in such a way that there is a chance for every industry to get included. What is your opinion here? Well, I believe we have some interruption with the connection. Mariyana, do you still hear us?
I lost you in the last sentence.
Yeah, so the question is, do you personally believe that there should be pioneering industry, like sectors that need to lead this process, or the process should be designed in such a way that it gives equal chance to all industries?
I will answer it here. I don't know. So frankly speaking, I'm not sure which is the right concept. There are countries and strategies which are more broader and other which are more specific. I believe that this depends very much from the economic environment of the country and the economic force. For example, in Bulgaria, we have the service sector is predominant. The GDP of the country is composed by sectors which are having their specifics. And I think that all the measures should be designed according to the country specifics, because it should support the companies who are producing the larger, for example, GDP. And because these companies are probably the biggest polluters, these companies are probably the bigger also innovation leaders in the same time. So there should be a mix of actions, of course, not support companies in their traditional way of doing business, but the traditional sectors should be supported. One of these is construction. We all know, and this is also why we have this project, the circular beacons. We know that the construction is all around us, but we also know that more than 40% of the waste generated is coming from construction activities, from the construction sector. And this doesn't mean that we should not support the construction sector. It's exactly the opposite. We should support it more because the potential for transformation there, it's huge. I don't know if this is a kind of a understandable answer.
Yeah, thank you. One very tricky question comes in. It's like the egg and the hen dilemma. Which should come first? Innovations, funding, or regulations?
There should go all together. What we see from our experience in this project, but not only in the Cleantech Bulgaria projects overall in the last 5-6 years, because we work very intensively with startups, and we see that the startups and the innovations coming from there are faster than the regulation, which is good because they are the drivers of the new development. But on the other side, after a year or a half, you see that if the regulation is not following this development, they're killing the startup. That's why they should not go one ahead the other with a large distance of time. They should be interconnected. And it's a normal process. The regulation will come in the moment you have the actors who need it. Otherwise, the regulation will not have anything to regulate. Funding is something that I think it's coming as a second step, because funding is available where there is economic value and economic sense of the activity. Of course, if we talk about industry, if we talk about research, the situation is a bit different. But funding is available. I think that this is not a big issue. The biggest issue is when you fund something, how to be sure that this will continue and it will be sustainable. And this is, again, getting back to, to the economic logic, to the regulations. But innovation and regulation, they're two absolutely, they're staying on the two different sides. the concept of innovation, the opposite is regulation, you know. That's why it's very hard. They should complement each other. You cannot compare them because they're different
They
definitions.
should be in constant interaction.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Sorry, thank you very much for the answers.
You're welcome. I'm really enjoying the questions because they're putting me also in a position of think a little bit and explain something more that I even didn't envisage in the slide. So it's great to have questions. This slide, I think that I covered here some of the aspects of this slide about the indicators. What is probably important is that different countries have regional, national, and EU level indicators. I mean, the EU level indicators are clear, but what we observed is that in some countries there are also regional indicators. In Bulgaria, this is not the case so far. But sometimes it works, especially for regions who are having a different specialization in one or the other sector. This is also an interesting outcome from the research that was made within the project. And now, because I wanted to leave this slide for almost for the end, is something that it's another project that we are jointly implementing with Climate-KIC. It's called Circular Learning Hub. Some of the partners in this project are also participating in the Circular Beacons project. But it is something that till the end of the year, there is still a possibility to join as an event, which is on 18th of December. And this event will show you something very, very interesting. It was a VR, virtual reality experiments underdone in 3 countries, Greece, Bulgaria, and Italy. And it was dedicated to entrepreneurs and to investors. How each of these 2 target groups react on circular transition scenarios and climate change scenarios. And the event will be very interesting because we'll present the outcomes of these experiments. In each country, we did 200 experiments, so 100 for entrepreneurs and 100 for investors. And what is absolutely logical, but also giving you the idea about how one and the same thing can mean different, absolutely different, can deliver a different message in the head of a person who is an investor or who is an entrepreneur. I will just give you a slight insight from the results of these experiments, which will be in detail presented on 18th. But you will be surprised how the investors react to crisis, to climate crisis. They see it as an opportunity. So for them, a flood or a fire in the forest, it's an opportunity. Of course, it's an environmental disaster, but an investor will seek for an opportunity to see how to solve the consequences of this crisis, or to see how to prevent the crisis. And both of this is related to how to smart invest money in order to prevent or deal with the results. And the entrepreneurs, on the other hand, they react much more conservative because their businesses will be affected. So they react with a fear, with a closure, so not with a proactivity. So and you see, because we had 2 types of videos, which were in this virtual reality scene, let's say. One was in a forest. So when you put the headset and everything, it's really like you're in a forest which is burning. And we were measuring the reactions and the reflections afterwards of the participants. And you see completely different reactions at the end. And the other video was was in Lisbon, in the center of Lisbon, comparing now. So like you're walking now in the center of Lisbon, everything is fine, the coffees are full with people, and in 30 years, where you have people, no people on the streets, just some kind of waste remaining somewhere. And it was not about Lisbon at all. It was just an example of European city. We don't want to put Lisbon in this negative scenario. But again, it's absolutely interesting how the people react and what are their intentions, what are their ambitions, and what is coming next if we allow that we get to these negative scenarios, because actually we don't know what is expecting us. Even the COVID crisis showed us that we never know. And also the video with Lisbon empty was not, because it was designed in the beginning of the year before the COVID outbreak. And actually, when we put it in October, and the people were like, okay, it's nothing particular. So it's just like a COVID right now, because it was very similar to what actually COVID brought to us, even faster than the video was predicting, like 2030. It brought it to us like 2 months later. So this is something to go away a little bit from the policy level and going to the citizens level, to the personal level. I was very pleased that we had the opportunity also to present you something which is interesting for the audience, I believe, to take a look if they can on 18th of December. This link, I know that you cannot click it right now from the screen because it's shared, but Maria, is it possible, or to ask the technical support guys to publish it under the streaming channel?
Yeah, well, we'll try to do that, of course.
So this is the registration link, what you see beyond. And with this, I would like to thank you for the attention, for the fruitful conversation, because at the end it was also an interactive part of this presentation. Yeah, if there are further questions, I would be glad to answer them together with our team.
Thank you, Mariyana, for this extensive share of experience from this very challenging task that you performed in the recent months in Bulgaria. Obviously, it was complex, but we see that it was really interesting and very needed. I would open now the questions for our guests in the Zoom link. You are ready. You are welcome to chat or to unmute yourself and reflect on the material that you just saw. We're also following the other channels of streaming. So the floor is yours now. Please, any questions, any comments? Let me check the other channels. Okay, in case you are not very comfortable, I will then start. I told you that I have prepared one question, which I find is inevitable in these days. It concerns the COVID crisis. During the first wave of the COVID lockdown in spring, we, the mankind, I believe it was average for all countries infected by the virus, which were locked down, is the immediate effect of closing economies on the environment and on the quality of the air and on the traffic in the cities and on the carbon emissions in general. And these effects happened just in a couple of weeks. And it turned out that the way that we behave in our economies has really a significant impact on the climate. I believe there are scientists that calculated about 20% drop in the emissions level, in the pollutions of the air, which is really remarkable. But it comes with a price, because we see now in the second wave of the COVID lockdowns that societies struggle with some social pressures, with some negative messages and emotions that even got consolidated around movements and anti-vaxxers, for example, movement, many meetings and protests around the world for against the lockdown. Even though science and medicine is clear that we have a very particular disaster to tackle right now. So my question to you, Mariyana, is what do you think these events, are they good for the development of circular economy? Will they be favorable in the long term, or just the opposite? The COVID is hinders the development and adoption of circular economy.
I don't think that any crisis might be good and positive. I really don't believe it. Even if the direct effect was in the better air quality in cities and less traffic for several months, this is not a real solution. I mean, this is not a real life. And talking about circular economy, I will just mention what I said also before. You can have circular economy when there is economy. When you don't have economic activity and you have reduction of, let's say, economic actors who are having profit of their activity, then you cannot talk about circularity, because there is a big possibility that if the crisis continues, or if another crisis comes, the people will get back to very basic level of living, like being forced to think about the nutrition, being forced to think about the water they drink and to how to raise their children. And I don't believe that then we will have the possibility and the luxus to think about innovations and to think about circularity when people's lives are put into a question. On the other hand, I believe that this will vary the globalization as such, the planes that we have been taking every second day. This year, not anymore, but I remember our last year. We were in our team, you know, Maria, we were like having a business trip for 1 day or 2 days, almost every week, just to meet with somebody for 3-4 hours and get back. I think that this, for example, will never get the same, and it's for good, because we realize that we need to see each other, but not in this way. I mean, for a 3 hours meeting, it can be done absolutely without a problem online. Of course, for conferences like this one, it's absolutely necessary to be together. So I think that the people will learn in time how to better address their needs, how to better consume what we have on our planet. And I think that most of you probably remember like 20 years ago when we didn't have the plastic bags, not so much in circulation. You were going to the supermarket with a textile bag, or in Bulgaria we had this some kind of a nets, or yeah, it was a very strange type of bag.
Knitted mesh bag.
Knitted
which
mesh
is coming back in fashion.
Exactly. So right now I'm a bit confused sometimes talking about packaging and plastic bags. Why, if we're so advanced as a society like we believe we are, 20 years, just 20 years before, 20 years ago, we never thought about this. So it was a normal thing to go to the supermarket with your own bag, or with your own bottle, or with your own type of pot in order to buy something. It was happening and nobody was complaining. It was kind of a normal thing. And now with the advancement of the technology, we have created a lot of industries thinking that we need them. And right now we are thinking how to destroy them, which is, according to my opinion, not the most smartest thing that we as a society have done in the last 20 years.
Thank you very much for this philosophical ending of our session. I believe there was a food for thought for all the participants, regardless of the country or sector that they originate from. We remain open to continue this discussion. For any reflections that you might share after the event, you can access the recording and get back to us. And I thank you very much, Mariyana, for the open discussion, for the open material presented, to everyone that participated and paid us attention in this complex topic and challenge. It's not the most pleasant thing to occupy your mind with. Now, before I close the session, I would like to navigate you through the conference so you can decide how to continue your experience with this event. So you have two options right now. You can either jump to Hall 1, where you can hear the interactive session named From Linear to System Thinking, Challenges and Opportunities. It will be actually quite a logical upgrade of what we heard today in our session. Or you can wait a bit until 1:45 Central European Time, when another session is starting. It's called Innovative Solutions for Cities, Eco-Living Project and Movetal Project. So it will be a pre-recorded session diving into experience from two international projects in urban setting in the topic of circular economy. Thank you very much once again. I wish you enjoyable experience in the conference until the end of the day. Thank you, Mariyana, once more. Bye to everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.